Welcome to this week's Get Inspired, where we are very pleased to have Wendy Merricks join us, the CEO of Jumar. Wendy, it's a real pleasure to see you. We were just saying how the last time we managed to catch up was about a year ago, as we'd just gone into lockdown and when the world had completely changed. So it's great to see you back again. 40 years you've been in the recruitment industry, which makes me feel actually quite young today, so that's great. Well done, congratulations. Wendy's talking to us today about how to make a name for yourself in what is a very crowded industry. We'll be taking questions throughout Wendy's presentation without slides, but Wendy talking to us. So please do post any questions that you've got for Wendy into the chat box, and I will pick them up as we go through and fill them into Wendy's presentation. We will try and finish up as we normally do by around 1:45, but please do feel free to ask any questions as we go. So Wendy, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you for inviting me in. Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for dialing in today. It would be good if we could keep this interactive, so if you do have any questions, then please feel free to pop it into the chat box, and I'll hopefully try and answer your questions as we go along. I thought I would pick out how to make a name for yourself in a sea of agencies. It always shocks me each year just how many agencies there are, and when you talk to clients and they say, oh, you know, I've been contacted by 20 agencies today already. And so I thought it would be a good topic to talk about, especially for those of you who are either looking to grow your business, or if if you're relatively new, or you feel like you might be a bit stale and maybe want to sort of revamp what you're doing a little bit. But as Natasha said, I've worked 40 years in recruitment, and I covered two niches when I sort of started in recruitment. And then when I started my own business sort of some 20 years ago, I decided to start it on the back of a niche. So I still run that niche today, but we have several other niches within Jumar. So I'm going to talk about setting up niches, which is one area where you can set yourself out from everybody else. And I'm also going to talk about client relationships. So there's lots of areas where you can stand out from the crowd, but I just thought I'd hone in on a couple of areas that we could probably talk about in a little bit more detail. I just thought I'd start off by just saying a couple of things. In my 40 years, I've worked through 5 recessions, and out of those recessions always comes a bounce back for recruitment. Recruitment has been one of those industries where it bounces back every time, and every time it bounces back, there are always more agencies that come into that sector. And part of the reason why more agencies come in after that sector is because quite often, as we've found with COVID, although it's not been a formal recession, but as we've found with COVID, quite a few people get made redundant, or companies are making cutbacks, or people have done so well during that time that they think now's the time to set up on my own. But quite often you get a lot of recruitment businesses that set up. Some survive, some don't. So I have some experiences around that. I thought I'd tell you 5 things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about women in leadership, which is why I like doing things in the Women in Recruitment sessions. I'm very passionate about keeping women in recruitment. We lose far too many. I'm passionate about supporting young people to be successful, and I love my new work-life balance. That's the new thing for me in the last 12 months. Love it. It's been a revelation for me, and it's great. And the other thing I love is my network, and that is something that I work very hard on, and something that is the key to a success. Couple of years ago, just to give you some stats, a couple of years ago, the recruitment industry generated around 39 billion of revenue. And during that year, there were around 1 million permanent placements, creating something like just over 5 billion worth of revenue. 33 billion of revenue is in contract placements. And each time we have a recession, there is a significant, like 200% increase in agencies. Not all of them survive, as I said, but that is always the effect of a recession. So in 2021, what's going to be different? What's going to be different about this year's bounce back? So history does repeat itself, but there are some sort of things that you need to consider for this year. So are you ready for these things? So are you ready for the impact of IR35? Are you ready for the good work plan? The aging workforce, which people keep talking about. Are you ready for D&I, which is something that we've all got to, particularly us ladies in women in recruitment? You know, D&I is very much high on the agenda in most companies, and if it's not, it should be. Flexible working and having a remote workforce is something that we definitely need to be thinking about. Are you and your clients looking for more automation in their businesses to get more efficiencies? And lots of organisations are looking at decarbonisation. So those are all of the things that we need to be thinking about. And then also thinking about recruitment as a career. I don't know about any of you, but how many of you sort of in school or in your A levels or going to university, or whether you did any of those things, how many of you got into year 10, year 11 and thought, I'm going to have a career in recruitment? That's what I'm going to do. And how many of you went to university to learn to become a recruiter? None of you. None of you. So most people fall into recruitment. I know I did. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. Thankfully, I got sent for the right interview and I fell into recruitment. Now, some of you may have friends or family members that have been in recruitment, but generally it's a shame, but it's not a recognised trade in the education sector. And so what we need to look at is how do people become recruitment consultants? And how do you make a career for yourself? Now, I know that from my own personal experience and people that were within my business, people in my business have earned more money than people that I know have gone to university and they've just spent years becoming an accountant or a surgeon or a GP or something like that. And people in recruitment I know have earned more money than those kind of people, and yet it's not recognised as an industry. So with 31,000 sort of companies employing 120,000 recruitment consultants, when you ring up that customer, how are you going to make a difference? How, when the customer takes the 20th phone call of the day, how are you going to make a name for yourself? So I'm going to pick on two main areas. One is customer care and two is building a niche. Okay, so I'm just going to talk for a few minutes around customer care. Before I do that, Natasha, I'm not keeping an eye on the chat box. Are there any questions yet coming into the chat box? Okay.
You're good to go. Thanks.
No, that's fine. If you want to challenge anything or you want to ask a question about anything I've talked about, just flag up and then Natasha will throw the question in. It pains me when I see the number of recruitment consultants that are in our industry sector that don't take enough time over client care. I've worked with many people that are quite transactional, or I hear from customers about other agencies that they work with, and they say they don't provide the kind of service that you do, Wendy, or I just don't have the same kind of conversations that I have with you. And it's nothing to do with the fact that I'm a CEO of a business. This is just the way that I've always been, and working in recruitment is something that is just under my skin. And to me, it comes across as being quite a simple thing to do, and that is to treat your clients really, really well. Be in a bubble with your clients. If you want your client to feel special, you should treat them like they're a friend, and if you had a friend, would you ring up your friend and ask them for something in quite a transactional way, or would you get to know your friend first before you asked something of them? You wouldn't just ring a friend and just ask them for something and put the phone down. There'd be a bit of preamble. You might want to court them a bit. You might want to take them out for a bit of lunch. So, you know, don't think that your customers are any different to your friends in terms of building a relationship. You need to interact with your clients in a personal way. As opposed to it just being a work-related sort of kind of conversation. There's nothing wrong with putting some sort of personal sort of things into the conversation that you have. It's interesting because I looked at some stats, and I don't know whether I got it from AppsCo or one of the others, but when clients are surveyed, 67% of them swap to a new supplier because they say they've just not been cared for properly, and that is quite a high number. I think that's quite a shocking number, that 67% of clients turn to a new supplier because they don't feel that they're being looked after properly. But guys, you know, it's not difficult, is it? You know, if you say you're going to ring a client at 2 o'clock on a Thursday, don't ring them at 1 o'clock on a Friday and be all in a huff and bluster because you say, oh, I've been really busy. Sorry, I just didn't get a chance to ring you. No, ring them when you say you're going to call them. And if you say you're going to do something for them, then, you know, then deliver on it and do what you say you're going to do. But just, you know, just a few thoughts around, you know, particularly in the recruitment sector is, you know, you don't just ring your clients and ask them if they've got any vacancies. And that might be just teaching granny to suck eggs to some of you. But there are so many steps ahead of doing that you could consider. So the first and most important thing is when you get to speak to a client is ask them what their strategy is, understand what their plans are for that year, ask them what projects they have, ask them what the challenges are that they may have, and then plan your approach to that client accordingly. I would go as far as to say is don't actually sell to them when you're on that initial call, because they would actually respect you for that. You know, if you spoke to them and said, this call isn't, you know, I'm calling from a recruitment business, but this initial call isn't really about asking you what your requirements are for people within your organization. What I'd like to do first off is really understand what your strategy is, what your challenges are, and then I'd like to go away and think about that and come back to you and replay back to you how best I think our service would suit what you're looking to achieve. Because quite often once you get on the phone, I know people get really excited and all you want to do is you just want to sell, and quite often they've shut off already because you've made them feel like a commodity. You've not made them feel like your best friend. So taking the time to do that. I think adding what we call latch keys, which is sort of giving them something, so that whilst you're expecting something in return, so you want their recruitment business, but doing some latch keys is always a good idea, and that could be anything that you could think of. It could be you've done some salary benchmarking surveys. It could be you found out a bit of research about their particular part of the industry sector. It could be a piece of software that you've developed, or having listened to one of their challenges, you might want to offer them some pro bono free consultancy, or you might want to say, look, we have a consultant in our business that could give you some advice around this. There's no charge to you, but shall we just get that set up? Because I think that would help you to formulate your plan and maybe meet some of the challenges that you might have. So you're actually giving them something before you're asking them to give something to you. So latch keys is always a good one. Having everything documented on your CRM system. so that when you go back to them on a second or a third call, or just on an ongoing basis, you can replay back to them information that you gleaned from a previous call, and dropping bits of information in will enable them to sort of hook in a little bit more to you. So if they mention they've got 2 kids and you go, oh, okay, how old are they then? And so capture all of that on your CRM. They've got kids at university, or, you know, they've got pets, or, you know, they've got a son or a daughter that's getting married, or, you know, some event that's happening. Why don't you adopt what I call silly features, which is a small item which has a large impact? If a client says to you that, I don't know, they've passed an exam, they've passed their driving test, something's happening, do something like just send them a card. Well done on passing your driving test. Well done on getting your MBA, or, you know, or if somebody's got a new promotion, send them a congratulations or a good luck card in your new role. And you know, don't do it on Moonpig. Get one and handwrite it and just say, well done, really chuffed to hear about your new job. Look forward to hearing how you're going to settle in. Catch up with you next month on that, Wendy. And personalize it, and just do silly features like that. I'll give you a very quick example. I had a client whose son was trying to get into a grammar school, and he was having to pass an 11 plus, and my boys had just been through that, and so I'd got these books that my sons had been practicing, and I sat that evening and I rubbed all the answers out, and I posted him the books, and he said, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I can't believe you've done that. It's amazing. But actually his son got in, not because he filled those books in, but his son got in, but he actually made a point of letting me know that his son had gone into the grammar school, and wanted to let me know because I'd taken a personal interest. And, you know, I did all of his business for 2 to 3 years. He never used any other agency, and I had all of his business exclusively. And it's just those little silly features that make a large impact with somebody, that makes you stand out from somebody who said, oh yeah, great that your son's trying to get into grammar school, and you never mention it again. And then just on a final note on here, and that is ask for feedback. How am I doing? What, you know, and ask properly. And if you're going to ask for the feedback, listen, document it, play it back to them, and act upon the things they say you're doing. And you need to ask, what am I doing really well? But what am I doing that is maybe different, maybe not so well? What could I improve on? And don't take it all personally and get all defensive or anything like that. Just say, do you know what, that's fantastic feedback. You know, I know clearly we've got some areas to work on, but I'm going to work on those, and this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to respond to that. And I don't think people ask enough for you know, critique, because people don't want to hear the bad news in case they've not done a good job. But if you get that feedback and you can then turn it around, and then you ask them again in a quarter's time or in 6 months' time and say, 6 months ago I asked you for some feedback and you put me at a 6 out of 10. So we've implemented this and we've improved on that. How do you think we've done? And get the feedback. And if you've gone up to a 7, okay, you might want to be 10, but if they've gone up to a 7, that's good. That's good. But if you've gone up to an 8 or a 9, but then maybe you can start to ask more questions about exclusivity, retainers, you know, that kind of thing, referrals, you know, landing and expanding across the account. You feel you've earned the right to do that because you've worked with them for a period of time and you've had consistency, but more importantly, you've improved your performance. And again, not enough people ask for those things and genuinely listen to the feedback. And again, I think that would help you to sort of stand out from the crowd. Okay, so really about relationships, it's about networking in summary, it's about doing what you say you will do, it's about thinking outside the box, offering a quality service and giving them the candidates that they've asked for. Don't throw 20 CVs at them and hope that one sticks. It's ask the questions, listen to the answers, and do your job well, and you probably will stand out from quite a few. So that's all I'm going to say on the strength of client care and relationships. But if you look after your customers will look after you. Is there anything anybody would like to ask before I move on to my next topic?
Please do send any questions you've got for Wendy through. Wendy, I just wanted to say thank you. That was really succinct and clear. And I think what I took from that was, I mean, actually, this is what you've talked about is not terribly difficult for us to do, is it? It's about being human a lot of the time. As you said, taking the transactional element out of what we do, engaging with the human side of ourselves and making what we do. We deal with people all day. We
exactly.
People. So I think you've given us some really interesting thoughts there that we could absolutely all go away and do something with. And I like the piece around talking to your customers about their strategy, because there's a much bigger picture to the world that we function in, isn't there? We're only one little part of the cog, a very important part, nonetheless. There's a big there. And the opportunity actually we get once we understand the strategies, not only can we understand our customers' needs and pain points and how we can help them, but we can also understand where we've got more of an opportunity to sell in as well, haven't we? And what more business potentially we might be able to get. So we've got one question that's just come in actually on, are there any tips on engaging with new clients on a new pitch?
Again, it's making sure that your pitch answers what they're looking for. So if you're pitching, they've invited you into their business to pitch. So before you pitch, you need to find out you need to ask those strategic questions. You need to, and so they would respect if you said, so we're really looking forward to doing our pitch, but I have a few pre-pitch questions we can ask. So understand their challenges, know what their strategy is, and then listen to what those points are and actually address them. What you need to do though is you need to prove value add. You need to show the benefits of working with you as opposed to any other supplier. Look at your differentiators. So why would they work with you and not another organization? And you really do need to think outside the box and almost make it that it becomes a no-brainer that they want to work with you. You could look at all sorts of things about how you approach your the methodology of your recruitment process, that you think about, their policies around decarbonisation, around D&I, ask them directly, what's your gender splits in your organisation? Is this something that concerns you? Is this something that you need to address? So what is your diversity policies? Do you feel like you've got enough diversity in your business? So ask all of those questions up front and make yourself stand out. So try not to do a generic pitch. And I would just ask yourself on every slide you do, ask yourself, so what? Put yourself in the seat of your customer and think about how they are going to receive your slides and your pitch. And keep asking yourself, when you've read that slide, ask yourself, so what? And keep asking, so what, until you can't go any further on each one. And then you should be changing your slides to make them more succinct to what the customer is looking for.
Thank you. And one more has just come in quickly before we move on. I think you have partly answered this already, but just to make sure there's nothing else to add. We find it very hard to reach new clients as everyone works from mobiles or remotely. Do you gain more success from LinkedIn or direct emails to get to that first call?
I can get to clients through both, but what I'm going to talk about next might actually sort of help you to sort of, so effectively what you're talking about is, you know, actually getting a video Teams call or a face-to-face meeting, or even just getting a phone call set up, you know, with those particular clients. It is hard, but again, it's around standing outside of the crowd of people that are making that approach. Look at their LinkedIn profile and look at the kind of posts that they're commenting on. Look at things that they're passionate about. If you go to the bottom of their LinkedIn profile, it normally says, you know, I'm interested in these things. Look at what groups that they're a member of, and try and join their groups maybe. But when you make the approach, you're you know, don't just click on and just hope that they accept your LinkedIn request. So from a LinkedIn perspective, you need to make those few words you say in that note different. But as I say, you need to research their industry and think about something that you think could be presenting them with a challenge. So it's about value add and what is your differentiator. So you have to think about that. So try and avoid generic notes, generic emails, make it personal. And it could be personal to you, personal to them. But yeah, just try not to. I get generic emails every day because I have a tech business as well as a recruitment business. I get approaches from agencies every single day. Some of them make quite an effort, but the number I get that are just quite bland, you can tell that I've been on a mail shot. I've even been called Mr. Wendy sometimes on some of the emails I get. So I don't even go past the Mr. Wendy and I've deleted it. So, and then just by email, I think what we're going to talk about next might help you to get past the gatekeepers and to get past that next email. But ask me again at the end if you think I've answered how you can approach new clients.
Thank you, Wendy. Well, let's get on to the
next bit. Okay, the next bit. So this is something that is something that I'm really, really keen on, and everyone that comes to work in my business especially, and I've mentored a few women in recruitment around sort of these topics as well, and it's building a niche for yourself in recruitment. So you know, what is a niche? So a niche is something where, you know, you can approach a client and say that you are an expert in this particular area of recruitment. So niches sort of help you in a lot of ways. So the things I'm going to talk about today is, so why would you have a niche? Well, you have a niche because it makes you stand out from 30,000 other agencies and the 120,000 recruitment consultants that are out there knocking on the same doors and fishing in the same pond. And I'm going to talk about how you choose a niche. And I'm going to talk through, you know, how and why niches are recession proof, COVID proof for those of you that are fairly new into recruitment. Looking at your niche and determining whether your niche is declining and whether you've maybe done it to death or it's just become an area that is either not in demand, the market has changed and it's standing back, and having a look at that. How do you run a niche? What the benefits are of having one, you know, market testing and all that kind of thing. So those are the things I'm going to sort of talk about now. So the benefits, why would you have a niche? I mean, I'd be quite interested in the chat if there's anybody that has a niche that can back up anything that we can talk about. So benefits of a niche generally, but this is not an exhaustive list. You generally get higher margins because you're specialist in what you do. You can generally get around preferred supplier lists. So when you make an approach to a client, if you're niche and they say, oh, sorry, I've got a preferred supplier list. If you're niche, you can quite often get in at a client site on a secondary list and say, I'm really not interested in your preferred supplier list. I just want to come on as a niche provider. And quite often clients are very keen to have a PSL and then they have a niche provider. And then if your organisation does more general roles or other sort of sectors or skills, then generally, if you really prove yourself in a niche, your relationship should be so good that quite often you just get promoted onto the PSL anyway. You can generally attract higher rates, which in turn then means you can quite often run a more profitable desk, division, team, whatever it is. You generally have a much closer relationship with your clients because you're talking their language. You know, you're talking in a terminology and you're in a sector that they're interested in. So if you're closer with the clients, they want to know what's going on within their sector. So you could be giving them tidbits of information or benchmarking or just generally what is happening in the market. And because you've then become close to them, because you're helping them personally, then generally, you know, you're able to get much closer with them. Quite often you've got less competition. You get more exclusivity. And in all of those things, then it enables you to plan your business or do your forecasting a lot easier when you have a niche. So those are all of the benefits of having a niche. So how do you run a niche? In fact, how you run a niche, so how do you choose a niche is probably a good one to talk about next. So a niche could be a small geographical territory. It can be an industry sector. So you might want to really narrow it down and say, I'm going to do all insurance companies that are under 200 million turnover, or I want to work with all HR, I want to do HR directors, or if I'm in technology, you can pick a technology area, or you may do something like I'm only going to do energy. So it could be a job role. So you could say, I'm only going to do HR directors. And then you make a name for yourself as the go-to person to do HR directors. Or if it's in technology, you might be an SAP specialist or something like that. So a niche, okay, doesn't have to be, you know, just a specific skill. It can be a number of things, but what it is, it's that you become the expert, the go-to person. So this is what I'll come on to now. I'll be quite happy to offline talk to anybody who hasn't got a niche and would like to develop a niche, because I'd like to then, you know, sort of talk you through, you know, what you feel you're confident in and what your experience is in to help you try and narrow down what a niche would be. So when you're running a niche, you need to sort of live and breathe being in that sector. So you need to attend all the user group meetings, you need to attend all the webinars, conferences, and outside of COVID situations, if you have a niche and there is a conference wherever it is in the country where all of the potential customers that would be needing to use people within that sector, you need to be there walking the floor. If you're confident enough to do public speaking, and you could do, you could do a slot at a conference or an event, even with the online events, if there's something that you can do where you can public speak, then that's how, you know, you start to build a reputation for somebody that is an authority. And that's a main thing about running a niche, is that your clients ultimately need to look at you as somebody who is an authority on the topic or the niche that you go for. So, you know, you need to get to know, particularly in the technology areas, you need to get to know who the vendors are. So, for example, if you're, I don't know, let's pick on Salesforce or SAP, you know, get to know the people at Salesforce, get to know some Salesforce account managers, or actually try and become a supplier into Salesforce as well. And then you can extend that to Salesforce customers, become a part of their partner program. I mean, how I started one of my niches was I got to know a salesperson that was selling a particular would sell a particular software, and actually they actually gave me their customer list. I mean, it was going back years ago. Under GDPR, they wouldn't do that now, but they would certainly share maybe some customers that they would introduce you into that are having some particular recruitment, because at the end of the day, the salesperson wants the client to be happy with their software, so they want to make sure that they're able to hire the people that they need. So, you know, when you're running a niche, they will quickly become confident in your ability to deliver. You will build up a pool of resources, and you'll get to know who all the candidates are, whether that's permanent or contract. You'll get to know all of the candidates. And then actually what happens is the candidates, wherever they land, even if you've not placed them, because you're an authority and they know who you are, they will take you with them. And so quite often it takes the hard work out of finding new clients and getting in, because your candidates will actually take you in and say, do you know what, if you need Salesforce people, you need to be talking to Wendy, because she knows everybody, and she goes to all the Salesforce events, and she'll speak about, you know, sort of, recruiting into the Salesforce territory. And then you'll find that you'll get yourself introduced onto a niche second tier list and take it from there. And again, you need to research your sector. You need to know what sort of legislation changes are coming in. You need to read the newspapers, and you need to be preempting what's happening within your sector. So if you know, say in HR, if that's your vertical, you know that employment law is changing, that's something that you could develop as a latchkey. Go to your customers. We've done this around IR35, but everybody quickly jumped on that. As soon as IR35 was announced, I got my FD to work in conjunction with our accountancy firm who does all of our auditing, and we got their tax partner to do joint presentations with Jumar to educate all of our customers on what IR35 was going to mean to them. And we won countless new clients through having these face-to-face sessions where we were getting clients or people that we'd never worked with before saying, oh, we're doing this IR35 seminar, please come along, it's free of charge, there'll be some refreshments, you can meet with other clients and talk to them about what their challenges are, and we won clients through there. So that's a latchkey, something that you could do to help you open the door. Subscribe to memberships. So if there's a Salesforce membership, you know, get yourself a license and get yourself a subscription. Join all of the groups on LinkedIn to do with the area that you work within, and get to know the hirers and the candidates. And again, you're just a name that will just become very familiar to them, and then they'll just say, oh, Salesforce, oh, I know, I saw Wendy on that group, I'm going to go and have a chat with Wendy. So that's really again how you will run a niche. So in summary, carefully define your niche market. Check out the competition. So how many players are there in your niche market, and do your research. Ask clients or the candidates. So I've come across these 6 companies that specialize in Salesforce. What do you think of them? How do you think they perform? How many times have they phoned you about a job? And if they phone you about a job, do they always call you back and give you feedback that why you didn't get the job, or, you know, bring things to a close and actually do the job properly? And if you think you can stand out and be a better supplier, then you know, sort of make the most of that and badge yourself as someone that, yes, there are 6 other players in this niche, but this is how you're going to be different. So map out what you're going to do, know who all the customers are, know who all of the candidates are and who your competition are, and be present within your niche. You know, you will know everything about it. Offer more to your clients and more value add than any other organization, you know, within your niche. And if you do all of that, and coupled with being a woman in recruitment who has the empathy and the ability to create and maintain really good working relationships with their clients, you really can't go wrong but to stand out. And quite often clients, you know, aren't as rude to ladies in recruitment in terms of getting you off the phone. So if you can get them on the phone, or you can get them into a presentation, then quite often you can quite easily, you know, sort of stand out just through, you know, your empathy and way of working. So that's my take on how you stand out from the crowd.
Thanks, Wendy. God, it reminds me though of years ago, and thankfully the world has changed. I went to see a client 25, 30 years ago who was a man, and outright refused to shake my hand at the start of the meeting, but shook my male colleague's hand, and it never left me that moment. And so it's really good that the times are changing. Yes.
They always think you're there to take the notes, don't they? Years ago.
Exactly.
You're there as the secretary to take the notes. Yeah, how times have changed.
I know, which is a good thing. Thank you to Claire Granger, who's confirmed that in her experience as well, that having a niche does really work, and gives you rapport with candidates and allows you to track candidates that wouldn't necessarily go to another recruiter. So thank you, Claire, for sharing that. One question that's come in, Wendy, and I'm just to let everybody know, Wendy has got a hard stop today, so we are going to be wrapping up in the next 10 minutes or so. Would a niche be more specific than the market you cover? E.g., if you focus on business intelligence contractors, be more technology specific or role specific?
You could do either. I would say with BI, you could be quite technology specific, because then if you get to know the vendor, and get involved in those particular groups, because then you'll get a lot more referrals. So it depends on how many. So if you get to know the vendor, if they've got 500 clients, then if you hone in on the technology specific, you're quite reducing your potential market. If you then you would make it role specific, I would say, because then you would do several. So if you did, you know, robotics or anything like that, you could hone in on one vendor. You know, the same with BI. You could hone in on one vendor, but actually find you've reduced your market too much. But the vendor will tell you that the details about their market. If they've got 10,000 clients, you can make a good living out of 10,000 clients. So do your research and find out the size of the potential market, and then make your decision. And again, I would say the customers that you do work with, go and ask them, because they would love it that if you said, thinking about my own personal strategy in my business, and I'm looking at this BI area that I'm expert in, and this could be applicable to any of you that are looking at your niches and how you plan, is ask your clients what they think. If I was to hone in on just a number of roles for you, would you consider that to still be niche? Or if I said to you, I'm only going to do business objects, for example, and I knew every business objects customer UK wide and every candidate, every perm candidate, I think you could become pretty much of an expert, because you'd join all the business objects groups, you'd be all over LinkedIn, you could do blogs on it. And if business objects then tell you what new features are coming out, then it's a good excuse to ring your client and say, oh, have you seen the new features coming out? Are you beta testing that? And they'd say, God, you're an authority on business objects.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And one more that's come in before we close up, Wendy. I recruit in FMCG and I've had a 20-year career as a sales director in this FMCG sector. So my USP is that I have done the roles myself for many years. My challenge is finding a niche within FMCG as it's such a wide area. What would you recommend?
Well, FMCG isn't my specific, because my background is technology. But there will be, so if you've been in that sector for a long time, there are going to be sectors within FMCG that are going to be quite good. What I would say as a result of COVID is look at the sectors, look in the press, because there are so for example, Business Insider magazine and Chamber of Commerce, and ask them how some of these sectors are doing. So the fast food industry has done really well because we've only been able to have takeaways, haven't we? The logistics area for FMCG and supply chain is one that I think has been I think is going to be a boom. So I would say you need to look in the press, do some market research, maybe go to some of the trade press around FMCG and speak to some of the editors of some of those magazines and trade journals and just ask the question, where are the hot spots? And maybe sort of say, oh yeah, I know a lot about that, right? I'm going to hone in on a couple of those hot spots. So I couldn't specifically say on FMCG. I have got a friend who is in the logistics space and was looking at FMCG, and he didn't get the job and was told it was because he wasn't specialist enough in FMCG. So try your trade journals and just go around and just ask your community, what are the hot spots, and then research that and then think, yeah, I think I'm going to have a go at that.
Thank you. Do you have any quick tips for someone taking a well-known brand from the West End and City to Kent and East Anglia?
So taking
right. I guess we're kind of going from we're recruiting in the city and we're trying to take now our business out to the home counties.
Okay, but if that's just a sector, are you sort of saying that they just want to hone in on that sector, as opposed to having a niche? So they're choosing a geographical sector. Again, it's down to your research and joining groups. So in my sector, when we want to target a new geography, what we do is we go on LinkedIn and we set up groups. We set up our own groups for our own recruitment sector. So I would do a women in tech. I do just we do a CIO meetup. So if I said I wanted to open up in Leeds, for example, so how I would go about that is I would start to set up lots of groups and have people within my organisation. So I'll get the women to set up a women in tech and invite women CIOs, CTOs into that and build up my reputation and relationships first. And then look to, once you've built the relationships, you can then try and sell to them. Just doing your market research on which clients, look at your job boards, see who's advertising, and look at what your competition are doing and where the hot spots of recruitment are happening in those areas.
Thank you. I'm going to give you one more, Wendy, before we call time so that you can get away to your client meeting. Can you share a personal LinkedIn pitch? What are you usually opening with?
I normally open with either that we are connected to somebody in common. So, I see you're connected with so-and-so, we're both connected to the same person, or I see you're a member of this group and this is an area where I'm a member of a group, or I would open up with some knowledge of an area of challenge I feel they have, where I would like to talk to them about that, and that I have a potential solution to something that I feel they have an issue with.
Is that empathy piece again, isn't it?
I'll give you an example. So I've approached 2 new clients, and I approached them only about 4 weeks ago. And I approached them because I knew that some tenders were going to be coming out. But I knew that my business wouldn't be big enough to tender. So what I did is I've approached the large company and said, as part of the government's, I understand that this is potentially an area that you would be bidding on this work. And as part of the government's initiatives to support more diversity and also to support SME organisations, you know, I would really like to introduce my business to you and would like to support any bids that you will be doing in this area. And with this particular client, we have knowledge in these areas, these sectors, which I believe could form a part of your bid response. And both of them came back to me within 24 hours and were actually bidding with both businesses. And you know, I was quite chuffed with that, because I was thinking, oh, it's all those businesses, big businesses going to be bidding for this work, and I think I'd like a little piece of that. So hopefully if one of them wins, we will. So it's about don't do the generic thing. Don't just go, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn, thought I'd be interested to link up with you. It doesn't pass the so what test, does it? So again, on your LinkedIn thing, just ask yourself before you click send, does it pass the so what test? Get them to hook on something that think, oh, so whatever it might be.
Really good advice. Thank you, Wendy. And lots of thank yous coming in from the audience as well, saying how this resonates with them and it's been really useful, and lots of note taking, and have a great weekend and thank you. So I think people have got a lot from this great session. That was really helpful, very practical actually. And I think when we give up our time in the day, and thank you, an hour is a big part of your day to give up for us. Okay. So it's really helpful though for people to go away with things they can actually put into practice straight away and do something with. So on behalf of women in recruitment and the audience, Wendy, thank you for sharing that experience with us. And I still find it really inspiring that after 40 years you're still out there with your customers doing the customer care piece, doing the engagement bit, and it just shows, doesn't it? That's why you've been successful and that's why your business has grown. So really admirable and very, very inspiring, Wendy. So thank you for joining us.
No, you're very welcome, and good luck everybody, and get those niches going and be successful.
Lovely. And you have good luck with your client meeting.
Thank you. All right. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.